What's up, Pirates? Wraith and Jim here with Awaken TCG, and today we're going to be going over some of the decks that get better with EB01. So maybe in OP06, they didn't have the greatest showing, they didn't have the greatest list, but now with EB01, which is just a half set, so it's half of what a regular set would be. So 3 leaders instead of 6, and then about 60 something cards instead of the 100, whatever. Uh, but some of these cards actually make some of these older decks, into that, top tier one contention. Put them into the conversation. Is this deck, up there? So we're gonna go over some deck lists. We're gonna show off some of the leaders that get, increasingly stronger, and actually have a great matchup spread going into this new EB01 format.
Okay, yeah, so EB pretty much, I mean, I think one of the main reasons they printed it is to give support to old archetypes, and they actually did. Really, really helped some decks that needed it, and they won some flagships in the East during the EB format. These decks, mind you, might not be the best in OP07, might get a little bit power crept out by the new stuff, but in EB, which is going to be about, I think, a month and a half until we get OP07 of EB stuff, is going to be really good for these decks. Let's go ahead and get into the first one that got a major buff from EB. It's going to be Green Uta. This is a list that won a flagship right here in the Philippines, went 5-0, first place, and pretty much it's going to be your standard Uta list. The only new EB cards that actually buff this deck are going to be this new 2K Sanji. So now with leader effect, Chopper is not the only 2K we can search. We have a new 2K Sanji that we can search. This one also having a playable effect is going to be really nice. And then also we're playing the new Bluno. Bluno is just a vanilla blocker. Nothing else, but it does kind of help because not only is it searchable, we can play it off Kid and stuff like that. I think does it have any other uses? I think you're more familiar with this deck than I am.
For the Bluno,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's just playable off Kid. If you're trying to play a defensive turn, you can go Luffy into Brook and then into the Bluno.
Mm-hmm.
And it just gives you more targets for your leader effect, right? So it makes your deck less bricky because you have that extra percentage to make sure you're drawing a card every turn with your leader,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is the biggest thing, is just making sure you don't whiff, because that's what really separates you having a good match versus a bad one, is depending on how many times you actually whiff and how many
Right.
times you can hit.
But yeah, I mean, this list in particular is like 90% film. The only non-films here are the actual Usus Kid and the Ezo. So you're
Yeah.
basically always hitting with these new lists.
Yep, 100%. And so it makes it just really consistent, which is what this deck is trying to do, right? So most of these lists aren't going to have, crazy sauce. They're going to be kind of basic like this.
Mm-hmm. But if you do like Uta, right, great deck. They got a big buff here. Next up, surprise. I didn't expect this myself. It is going to be Iceberg the GOAT. We have showcased him on the channel a few times. He has never been good. This one, though, now in EB, is probably the best he's ever been, and unfortunately, I think the best he'll ever be. So he did get a few cards that were specifically targeted to buff him, and he did end up winning a flagship. Mind you, this is the only flagship appearance that he ever had, so this could have been like a one-time thing, like kind of a lucky run. He saw the right matchups, the right cards, but no terrible deck can ever win a flagship. So this deck is at least good. Let's go ahead and look at the new cards that make this deck now playable. It's going to be this new Khalifa, another 5-drop that is playable off Iceberg effect. This one's only a 5k. It's going to have the effect on play down -1 if your leader has the Water 7 type. Return up to 2 4-cost character cards from your trash to your hand. So 2 of them. This is a draw 2 on a 5k body. So, and this is any 4-cost character. So this deck runs Reiju. So basically, you can like do this, play this out off leader effect, and if you're at less down than your opponent, you just drew 2 off Khalifa, and then we drew 2 off Reiju. So the main issue with Iceberg was always that you played out bodies too fast. They would remove them, you can't swing the leader, and you have no cards in hand. This now fixes that, as well as the fact that sometimes we will not have board. This new card is going to fix that. It's going to be a 4/5, so unfortunately cannot play this off leader effect. It is, oh no, actually we can. It is a Water 7 target, I think. No, sorry. This one you can't. It's not Galley Lock Company, so This one you can't play off leader effect, but you can play out on the board for 4. And it's going to be on play Dom -1 if your leader has water 7. Play up to 1 5 or lower water 7 character card other than Bluno from hand or trash. So from trash is really big because we can get a 5k and then we can get just like a 6k Lucci from trash. So now we have board flood and we have card draw. That's like everything this deck needed. So again, best this deck's ever going to be. If you like Iceberg, now's the time to play it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the buff that this deck gets is insane. The only issue is obviously Sakazuki is still into this meta, so obviously that's a bad matchup for any deck. But regardless of that, this does have a really good matchup spread into most of the other meta decks. So definitely want to try this one out if you're interested in Iceberg. I think you know, that power increase that he gets makes the deck just so much more fun.
Awesome deck if you guys have never played it before. And next up here, we've got the deck I am most excited for in EB. And I want to say the best, the deck that got the biggest buff, because I think it's actually like at least top 10. This is like a slight almost meta contender. It's breaching. It's one of few flagships. It's going to be Purple Yellow Croc. Purple Yellow Croc has always been not amazing, but it's always been decent. Now in EB, we are looking up. So we got new cards like Mr. 2 Bong Clay. Great card, as I'm sure everybody knows in Rpaw, was actually printed for this deck, pretty much. So it's going to buff it as well. And then we also have new cards like this one here, which is the main reason this deck is going to be insane. Okamawe is a 1 Dawn counter card. It's going to be Dawn -1, so instantly replenish off leader effect. If your leader has Brockworks in its type, choose one of your characters, change the attack change their attack to the selected character. So that card is basically infinite counter on a 1-cost event, which is insane. If we have a let's just say a searcher that we played on board, they're like, oh, you're at 0 life, let me stack lead, swing 15. Okay, 1 Dawn, I'll make this a blocker. Say they only swing 7 or 8. 1 Dawn, I'm going to make my Crocodile a 9k blocker. Its uses are insane, and the card is broken. And it makes this deck really, really strong. Not to mention, you can target into Okiku and heal for free. Very, very strong. And the last new card being Miss Wednesday, 3/4 blocker that is basically just going to ramp you on your opponent's attack by adding another extra Dawn card with its effect.
Yeah, I think this deck has a lot of great strengths now, especially the biggest one being that 1-cost event you were talking about. That makes any single card a blocker, right? Yeah. Target into my Kiko, heal like, oh, target to my 8-cost Croc. Now we're just having a 9k blocker on the board, like, hello. And then with leader effect, you're not even paying for it. So it's just such a great card. Obviously, that's why it won flagships. I think it has a lot of potential. And I think even still has more of a ways to go. I think this deck can get even better in EB01. A lot of the times, you know, less represented decks don't get the efficient testing that, you know, these other meta contenders already get. So this list could potentially get even better, and this deck could get even stronger. But very, very interested in playing this Laker Croc. I think I have all the cards to make it, so it's definitely one of the decks I'm going to make and just test, just for fun, just because of how great this deck looks.
A lot of potential for sure. Last up here, we've got, I'm sure the deck everybody knows gets a big buff from EB, but we're going to talk about it anyway. It's going to be Rpaw. This one, another flagship winner. This one went 7-0. Pretty much, guys, this deck got like the perfect cards to make it good. Right here, as we talked about before, this card's insane. Your opponent played a Moria. We just played a 4/1 that ramped us in Active Dawn and is now a 9k attacker. So that, yeah, that's pretty fair. And then Kid and Killer is just a 7k rusher that we could play off leader effect. Absolutely insane, but I'm sure you know more about this deck than me, so go ahead and say why it's broken.
So, you know, obviously back in release for the deck, the main issue was just being able to keep up card advantage and being able to have, you know, cards in hand. So it's kind of like Iceberg, where you play things out of your hand and you kind of just eventually ran out. So OP06 solved that issue with Reiju, the 4-drop Reiju that draws you 2, because for the most part you're always going to be lower than your opponent in Dawn. So, you know, this is a free draw 2 at all times. I kind of fixed that. but the deck still felt a little too slow. Uh, Now we have the Kid and Killer, which is probably the biggest upgrade to this deck. Because if you get a a very aggressive draw, your opponent will not be able to keep up with this card. It just gives you so many options. You can play board, you can play rush him down, and there are situations where you can just fill up your board with 5 units, swing away, and now your opponent is stuck dealing with the full board, just because you hit the nuts. Like, this deck has so many advantages. Being able to just play Kid on 5, and then you go leader effect, play a Shachi and Penguin to go back to 5, and then on your 7th on turn, which is where you're supposed to be, you go Ace. You can swing into a target. You can already bottom deck one. Now you have this body. Um, it just it has everything you want in a top tier deck, and it has the answers for basically everything in the meta. So this makes it a very well-rounded deck that can play board now, can play resources, can play fundamentals. It can play rush. It just has not only the defense now, but even better offense, which with an engine like Reiju just to consistently draw. I think this is one of the most unstoppable decks going into EB01. So very high praise for the deck, but it is a really good one. All right, Pirates, thank you guys so much for watching until the end of this video. We really hope you guys enjoyed. We kind of just went over, 4 leaders that we think, really get buffed with EB01. So hope you guys enjoyed those lists. If you guys want some more information, you guys can leave comments down below. We'll answer some questions as this video gets uploaded. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like this video, comment down below, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.